Hey everybody, this is Mike with the One Stop Co-op Shop, and today I'm doing a review of Moytura, which is a solo, competitive, and cooperative game of area control based on Irish mythology. And disclaimer that I got a review copy of this one. In Moytura, the players control two different factions of the Tuatha De Danann, ancient mythical peoples of Ireland, facing off against three different factions of enemies trying to control different areas of the island. And that's controlled through the players selecting different deities, which will give them different powers as they place new units, and they can spend worship cubes they can collect to activate higher deities for more powerful effects. Meanwhile, the enemy expansion is handled through randomly drawn cards, but the players can attack them to disrupt their plans and get in their way. So let's discuss 5 key things to know about Moytura. So starting at number 5, the least important of the 5 points to know about the game, but still important I wouldn't mention it. I'm looking at the worship cubes and upgrading deities, and this is a pro for my taste. So as I mentioned, you can use these worship cubes to pay for higher ranked deities. After you use a deity, they move to the top of the row, so those rankings will change throughout the game. And you collect these worship cubes by placing your units into temple areas and or by defeating a bunch of the enemies. So that already makes the area control more interesting as some regions become more valuable than others. But when you use 2 or 3 worship to activate one of the top deities, you get to put an upgrade token onto their tile, which will get you more units every time you pick them in the future. And this leads to some really dynamic and powerful turns, and it also makes the selection of deities way more interesting, because in the competitive game, you might want to grab a deity, even though it's not that strong for you, just to stop your opponent getting a cheap use of one that's super strong for them. From a number 4 point, I'm looking at the enemy factions. This is mostly a pro for my taste. So the basic Fomorian faction comes in 3 colors, and you're drawing a random card each turn for them to expand out into new regions, and they keep getting bigger and bigger, so if you ignore them, they can take over half of Ireland. And that's already pretty fun and dynamic, but in the base game, they have 3 alternative factions: Banshees teleporting around, Hydras expanding in unexpected ways, Sea Serpents going around the ocean. And if you get the Magmel expansion, you get 3 more factions that actually leave tokens that change up the gameplay even more. So all that is cool while you're jockeying with the other player to try to control as much as you can. The enemy is a constant threat, and if their victory points beat both of you, you all lose. The one negative I'll add, though, that will frustrate some players is that the randomness can be a bit swingy sometimes. For example, if I'm mainly fighting the green faction in the south and the other player is mainly fighting the red faction in the north, and one of them just happens to get more cards than the other one, it can push the game in one player's favor, but that's also part of what keeps the experience varied and exciting. Next, my number 3 point are the different deities and their powers, and this is mostly a pro for my taste. The deities each have their own special power and focus. Dagda lets you split the units you're placing into multiple directions. Eru and Boand let you jump across places to get into new regions for area control. Morgan just defeats a bunch of people and clears out the enemies. And all of those are appropriate and useful at different times. And if you get the Magmel expansion, you also get Lu, a 5th deity to swap in, who messes with enemies by teleporting them to other spaces and even potentially sending them against your opponent. All that is cool. The negative here, though, the thing that almost brings it all the way down to a mix for me, is that with only 4 deities in the base game and only 1 extra deity in the expansion, it does get a little bit samey play to play, especially compared to the variety in factions and setups, to have mostly the same deities and the same powers game after game. Next, my number 2 point is the actual area control, and this is a full pro. I've already mentioned several things that make this interesting. Some of the deities let you jump over spaces or jump over the ocean to get further in places. You want to try to have your units be spread out so you can earn victory points in multiple spots, but sometimes you want to focus in and just really hammer one region and really defeat the enemies there. Because if you don't defeat the enemies, as I said, they're going to keep expanding out of control and they could just wipe both of you off the map. You also have to try to get the worship cubes. You also want to get in each other's way, but you can't to directly attack each other. So it's a really fun and interesting spin on area control, not like anything else I've really played before. And I think there are some awesome tactical decisions to be made in the game. And finally, for my number 1 point, the thing I think it's most important to know, or at least the most important to know for coverage on this channel, since I imagine y'all are interested in the solo co-op mode, and this one is a mix. On the positive side, the solo co-op plays surprisingly well. It's a nice puzzle for the players to figure out how to maximize their points while minimizing the enemy points, and communicating to figure out who's going to use which deity, which regions they'll try to share. That's all pretty cool. But on the negative side, you lose a lot of the tension in the game, since anything you do to knock down the enemies boosts you up, so the play is a little bit more obvious and that you should attack. And it also means that the Morrigan deity, who attacks enemies directly, is the least interesting, and I think the game really picks up if you get the expansion with the optional Lu alternate deity. Overall, I think Moytura is doing really cool and unique things with area control. So if you like tactical skirmish games in a limited fashion or like area control, it's definitely worth checking out, especially for the competitive mode, which I think is great. But with either the expansion or the new variant for Morgan that it sounds like they're going to add, I think solo and co-op play in the base game work well too. On the other hand, you might want to avoid this one if you hate area control, if you want to directly fight with somebody else, since you and the other player, even in competitive, are kind of working together a bit, or if you really hate card draw randomness, because sometimes, again, the way the factions come out can mess up your play. And if you want to see the game in action, I did a 2 playthrough video recently on the channel. Thanks for watching, everybody. Good gaming, and I'll see you at the next stop.